Hello everybody, this is Maya Zahira with Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and we are now live in our free Facebook group, Psychic Protection Sanctuary. And every month we have a free Facebook Live class in here, and then we upload it to my YouTube channel, which is also called Psychic Protection Sanctuary. So you can find these free classes in both places, in the free Facebook group, Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and also on the free YouTube channel, Psychic Protection Sanctuary. So if you want to join us live, if you're watching the replay, if you want to join us live in the future, be sure to join our Facebook group, Psychic Protection Sanctuary. And be sure to answer the 3 questions, because if you don't answer those, then I decline. I click the decline button. We only want people in the group who really want to be here. So let's go ahead and jump into today's topic. Today's topic is all about travel tips for psychic protection. So how to keep yourself safe spiritually while you are traveling. And I'll start off by talking about why that's even important in the first place. But before we jump into our lesson, I just want to give a shout out to everybody here who is joining us live. So as usual, go ahead and say hello and let us know where you're joining from. Right now we have Angie and we have Amanda from North Kansas City. Good to have you all. And actually my camera is struggling a little bit. Hopefully this is okay. So let's jump in. You might want to take notes for this. Let's start off by talking about why would it even be important? Why is it even an issue to focus on psychic protection when you're traveling? And here's why. So you may or may not have noticed, and if you're watching this, you may fall into the second category. You may or may not have noticed that there are some people that just don't seem to have any paranormal experiences, or barely any. It's not something that's at the top of their mind because it's really not an issue. And there are a lot of people in the world who would fit into that category. And they just kind of go through life and they don't really pick up on spiritual stuff. Maybe they're more of an analytical kind of person, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. So there are a lot of people out there who are not susceptible to psychic protection issues until they are. Because sometimes even people like that end up accidentally staying at a hotel that's haunted or something like that. So that stuff can still happen. But there are a lot of people out there that their normal set point is that they're not really they don't really tend to be that vulnerable to this kind of stuff. But then there are other people like me and like many people in our Facebook group who are quite vulnerable to psychic protection issues, spiritual warfare issues. And let me talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to talk about travel tips. So there are a couple of, I'm just keeping it really basic here, there are a couple of reasons why a person might be vulnerable to psychic protection issues in general and while they're traveling. So the first one is that you may have had some unwanted paranormal experiences earlier on in life. At some point in the past you had some experiences. It could have been when you were a kid, it could have been early, it could have been at some point in your adulthood before now, where someone sent a really powerful psychic attack energy your way because they were jealous of you, or you ended up accidentally living in a haunted house, maybe when you were a kid or when you were an adult. Either way, those kinds of issues in your past tend to create what I call an imprint in your energy field. And so that imprint makes it so that you would tend to have you would tend to attract those kinds of issues again in the future. So if you've had those kinds of issues in the past, at least once, then you may be more susceptible to having more experiences like that. You would be more of a target than someone who hasn't. Okay. And the other reason why you might have issues with psychic protection is if you are what some people call a light worker, or if you are here on the planet to do some really important work for the benefit of the world, so you have a really important soul mission, then often people who have a really important soul mission end up being heavily attacked through spiritual warfare in order to take them down and keep them from fully fulfilling their mission. Let me give you an example of this. Every time, so in the past couple of years, every time I would travel, now this was in the past, every time I would travel to holistic fairs, psychic fairs, out of town, so I would be on the road, I would be renting Airbnbs and, staying places, whatever. I'd be going out of town to go to these events. And like every single time I would get totally blasted with what I call negative spiritual interference. And it would show up in a variety of ways. Either the owner of the Airbnb would like completely flip out for no reason. Like they would get totally triggered, and then I would get kicked out of the Airbnb, or I would have like really unusual but really dangerous automotive issues while I was on the road. What else happened? Oh, I stayed at this one place that had like horrible entities in it. Okay, oh my gosh, the wind is really picking up, you guys. I hope it doesn't blow my camera over. So every time I would just have these like crazy issues, and I would tell people about it, and they'd be like, oh, that didn't happen. That doesn't even sound real. Well, it was really real. Like this stuff kept happening. And the reason why it was happening was because I was traveling places to go and reach people and help people who had entity attachments and other difficult spiritual phenomenon. And those beings there where I was traveling didn't want me there. Like, let's take her down, right? So that kept happening. It's not happening as much now, but I had a bit of a learning curve where I had to, like, my home is very, very protected here, but I had to figure out some very simple ways to keep myself safe and protected while I travel, because I am somebody who has been pretty heavily targeted. And that's just how it is for some people, for the couple of reasons that I just described. Even if you would not describe yourself as someone who is targeted on a regular basis, but you just want to be smart, it's just like learning how to be a safe driver. You want to learn to be a safe traveler and just be aware of your surroundings. So I'm going to give you a couple of tips here. And as always, I got to peek at my notes. All right. So before you go traveling, and this is like whether you're going on a road trip or you're like however it is that you're traveling, it doesn't matter. All of these things are going to apply. So the very first thing is that I would highly recommend that you choose your travel locations ahead of time. I know that there are some people who just will get in the car and go and just stop at a random hotel or whatever. And who is this person pulling into my driveway? Interesting. I wonder if there's a package being delivered. That's so funny.
I'm just verifying addresses. I don't want you to think I'm creeping around out here. What's the census bureau? What is your address?
I am on a live video right now, and I cannot give that to you. Okay. That's interesting. She was a really nice lady, but she was asking for me to say my address, which I can't say on a live video. Interesting. Oh, that's weird. Okay, so hi, Zahira and Brett. Good to see you both. I want to share a little secret with you guys before we get into the next part of the traveling. So it's that on purpose, I don't have my address on my house. It's because I only want people to find me that I want to find me. So I've just shared part of my little secret. But yeah, so that's probably why she can't verify my address. But that is okay. So because of the work that I do and all the clients that I work with, and the position that I'm in, I tend to have to be a lot more careful, spiritually speaking, and just taking extra little security measures in my life in general than the average person. So it might seem over the top, but yeah, there's just a lot of measures that I have to take. So what that means is that I know what I'm talking about, because you know, these are not mild issues that I've had to deal with. So let's get back with traveling. Before you even go on your trip, it's important that you choose the right spot or spots. So let's say you're going to choose your hotel ahead of time, or your RV campground, or your Airbnb, or whatever. Even if you're going, if you're flying, you'll want to kind of apply what I'm going to say here to your airline and your flight as well. So what I'm getting at with choosing your hotel or your Airbnb and everything ahead of time, when you go online, I want you to really tune in to your inner guidance, your gut feeling. Now I do give psychic skills training in my program, FYI, if you want to develop that more. But just speaking generally, if you don't have to be like super psychic in order to do this, you can just tune into your inner guidance, your inner knowing, your gut feeling, etc. as you're looking at the hotel, as you're looking at the resort or whatever. I haven't stayed at a resort in like forever, but wherever it is that you're getting ready to stay at, see if you can pull up pictures and look at it and notice how you feel. If you feel some kind of sense of worry, like, I don't know, I feel worried about this, then listen to that. Now, yes, sometimes it's not our inner guidance. Sometimes it's like you're just overthinking it, but that takes practice, being able to not go into overthinking and just focus on your inner knowing. So notice how you feel. And if you have developed your psychic skills, then use some of your tools to tune in. Like, is this going to be a good place for me to stay? Now, let me give an example. So about 6 months or so, I don't know, it was about 6 months ago, I had scheduled an Airbnb for a weekend when I was supposed to be out of state at a psychic fair. And in that particular city, it wasn't a very big city, there were hardly any choices for Airbnb. And I tend to like to stay at Airbnbs instead of hotels, because then I have a kitchen that I can use and stuff like that. So as I was looking on Airbnb, I was like, there's not hardly any choices. And the one that fit my budget, and like really the only choice, when I pulled the picture up, on Airbnb, you can also see a picture of the host and of the space. And I saw a picture of the host. I mean, logically speaking, the host looked perfectly fine, and they had all good reviews on their listing. But I took one look at that picture and I said, something is wrong with that person. Like, spiritually speaking, I don't know if they have entities attached to them or what, but something is not right. And so I went ahead and booked it because it was a financial decision. It was like, this is like, it's like 75% cheaper than the hotels in the area. So I made a choice and I decided to stay there. So a month later, I did stay there, and it turned out there was some very freaky entity activity going on with that person and with their space. And that's going to show up probably in my second book. I just have to have time to write it. So, you know, that was kind of a poor choice on my part. But, you know, when you're looking at the difference between $40 and, you know, $130 hotel room, and you're having to stay there for 3 nights, that's a huge amount of money difference. So I had to make a financial decision there. But I learned I'm never staying at that place again. So the point is, you want to choose your right spots ahead of time. So you want to pull the pictures up online, notice how you feel, and trust what you get. Try not to overthink it. Hey, Charles, good to see you. Try not to overthink it, but just notice your gut from the first moment. So actually, that's a little intuition tip. The very first feeling that you get, before you have a chance to think about it, the very first feeling that you get, that's your intuition, okay? Once you start thinking and ruminating, that's your brain overthinking. But the very first feeling or sensation that you got, the first moment that you pull the picture up, that's the truth about it. So listen to it, okay? So you want to choose the right spot or spots so that you can avoid the unwanted paranormal activity in the first place. Now, I know that some people on purpose choose, and here we go, my nose itches again. There's some people who on purpose choose to stay at haunted hotels. That's fine. No judgment on my part if you choose to do that. But if you've been vulnerable to psychic attack and paranormal activity in the past, why would you want to do that? Okay, just a rhetorical question. Why would you want to do that to yourself? Maybe I would just suggest, I'd make the suggestion that instead of sleeping overnight when you are in your most vulnerable state at a known haunted hotel, if you really want to go and visit that haunted hotel, then maybe you could go during the day and do a ghost tour or something. But when you're sleeping, you are the most vulnerable. So I would just make that gentle, loving suggestion to kind of just think about that and consider it. Okay. And it's everyone's personal decision on that. So your very first step is to choose the right spot. And if you have a bad feeling about that place, then don't book that place if you possibly can. Like in my case, like we were talking about hundreds of dollars of price difference. Oh gosh, if I had to go back and do it again, I don't know. I would probably not. I would just probably not even go to that psychic fair, because it wasn't worth it to spend hundreds of dollars more for a hotel. But I wouldn't want to experience that paranormal activity again, because it was pretty yucky stuff. And so anyway, choose the right spot. Choose the right spot. And the next thing is, in the days before your trip, you can prepare energetically, vibrationally, spiritually for the trip. So you can do prayers, do your daily spiritual practice, work on strengthening your own energy field, work on grounding, balancing your energies. And then what you can also do is send energy ahead of time to the place where you're staying. And I do this a lot. I'll sit out on my property with my bare feet on the ground, and I will visualize, even if I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, I will visualize and intend and pray that space will be cleared. And I set up a bubble of protection around it, and I ask that light come into that space. And I work with angels, so I ask that angels come in and act as guardians throughout the space. And so I work with the energy ahead of time. And also, if I'm going to be at a psychic fair or a holistic fair where I'm going to have a booth space, I clear and enhance the space ahead of time. So even if you don't do psychic fairs, but you're going to go to some other event where you're going to be there in that one spot, you can clear that energy ahead of time too. My other suggestion would be to, if you're going to be traveling, to wear some kind of protective amulet, some kind of protective jewelry, not just some random trinket, but something that actually has protective value for you. Something that you've spent time, like you've put intent into it, you've prayed, or done some kind of sacred ceremony to bless that object and charge it so that it's protective for you. So even if you don't feel the need to wear protective jewelry all the time, a time that you might consider wearing it is when you're traveling. And that will also help you while you are in transit, and then while you are at your location. Okay. And speaking of being in transit, one of the things that I experimented with recently was traveling in stealth mode. That's what I call it, traveling in stealth mode. So in the past, I've tended to be very transparent. I always have someone who comes and house sits for me. So I never worry about, like in the past, I never worried about saying, hey, everybody, I'm out of town at this blah, blah event or whatever. Like I never worried about that because like there's literally someone at my house. So no one's going to come and rob me because there's someone there. The house is not sitting empty. So I never worried about that. But what I noticed was that when I would be really public about, hey, I'm going on this trip, blah, 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 I would notice that there was an upsurge in what I call negative spiritual interference. So I'd have crazy stuff happen on the trip and just all sorts of wacky stuff. And I really feel like it was a combination of two things. I feel like it was people on social media, and I don't mean that, I'm not trying to, not coming from a negative place on this, I'm just speaking the truth. I really do think that there were people on social media that would see my post, and for whatever reason, something within them would get triggered, whether they felt jealous or angry or whatever, that like, oh, she gets this opportunity and I don't. And by the way, they don't know all the really hard parts of my life. It's really easy to be jealous of people when you don't know. You really don't know, like the struggles that someone is having. But I think sometimes people would just, unintentionally or intentionally send a blast of negative yuck energy because they're kind of mad that you're having a positive experience. And the other thing is that when I would post on social media or you post online and be really public about traveling, it was like it gave this immediate alert to any negative spiritual forces out there, like, oh, hey, she's away from her protected home spot, let's blast her now. So finally, I finally figured out, through the advice of a really good friend, I finally figured out that it's better for me to stealth travel. So I no longer talk about my travels until after the fact, and that has really helped. So I want to just make that suggestion. Like I said before, my scenario might be like I might have to be more even more careful than the average person because of the work that I do and the role that I'm in. Like any opportunity for me to get blasted is taken, right? And so you might not have to be as careful as I do, but I really feel like some of you watching this would really benefit from stealth traveling and not telling, like only telling a select few that you're going to be gone, and those are the people that you check in with every day so they know that you're safe, and then no one else knows, and then that keeps it so that you can travel safely and there's no like weird unintentional negative energy coming your way. Shelley says hello. Mariah says, how can we be unaffected by bad people's vibes? Yeah, so there's not an easy answer to that, Mariah, but there's an answer that I would give that helps you overall with being less vulnerable to any kind of negative energies coming your way. And it's an approach that has a few different parts. And the first part is that you absolutely need to have a daily spiritual practice. I don't care if that's just sitting in silence, if you're not a religious person, if it's just sitting in silence or sitting under a tree, or meditating and doing, traditional meditation, or if it's doing a walking meditation, or if it's doing prayers associated with your particular religion, or whatever. but a minimum of 10 minutes a day of some kind of spiritual connection, connecting with source, connecting with your guides or your angels, connecting with yourself, connecting with quiet, connecting with inner guidance. So that's the first part. Absolutely have to have a daily spiritual practice. Number two, in order to be less affected by negative energies, is that you have to really make a long-term commitment to work on whatever your past traumas and your unhealed wounds are. And that's going to be journaling, or working with a therapist, or talking with a friend regularly. It's basically like really working on your stuff. And it's not something that you can work through quickly. Like, you've got to work through all of your triggers and your wounds, and that takes a lifetime. But the reason why that's so important is because the people who send negative vibes and the sorry, people are sending me messages. The people who send negative vibes, or the entities that try to hook in, they hook in a lot of times right through whatever your wounds and your fears are. Okay, so that's why it's important to work on your triggers. And I know I'm going on a sidebar here away from our topic, but I think this is relevant for everybody to answer Mariah's question, how to be less affected by the negative energies. The number 3 thing that I recommend in that 3-pronged approach, having a spiritual practice, working on your traumas, your unresolved traumas and wounds, and number 3, doing daily clearing protocols. Okay, so that's burning sage, burning frankincense, taking salt baths, cleansing your house, all those kinds of things. Okay, so it's not just like wear blah blah crystal that will fix you. I've worked with so many people over the years, and I've had my own issues, and I know that those quickie little things can help a little bit, but if you want the real answer, that's the real answer, Mariah. Okay, cool. Shelly says, that happens to me all the time, like with traveling. Yeah. And Mariah says, that's a little too much. Okay. Oh, Mariah says, it's unnecessary. You can protect yourself. You don't have to hide. Well, respectfully and lovingly, I would say that that's your opinion. And some of us who are heavily targeted, like, I mean, I've worked with clients who have thousands of entities attached to them. And I have to, because I am such a threat, and I don't know what other way to put this, but because I'm such a threat to so many of those entities, like I'm a threat to them, that when I go out in the world, I often do need to go in stealth mode. Otherwise, they see me and they're like, holy shit, there she is, and they attack. I've literally had people who were mentally ill, who had entities attached to them, and I'm just sitting there doing nothing, and they come over. The entities control the person and make the person come over and attack me. Okay, that doesn't happen all the time. It hardly ever happens anymore. That's because I don't shine my light for those people to see. So I don't think of myself as hiding. Maybe that's how I described it. I'm not sure, but I think of it as I am making myself very visible. Yeah, so let me clarify. When I'm out in the world, I am intentionally making myself very visible to anyone who is a match, where I can benefit them or they can benefit me, and we're supposed to connect. So I make myself very visible to those people, and I make myself very not visible to anyone who's going to be non-beneficial. Okay, so here's something that I started doing like 20 years ago that's similar, and maybe this will make more sense. So about 20 years ago, when I would do my prayers and my meditation, sometimes I would do this little visualization where I would make my house, like the property around my house, I would make it I would make the whole property go invisible to anyone who, there was, at one point I was living in an area where there was a lot of break-ins, and I didn't want my house to be broken into. So I asked that my home be cloaked specifically to anyone who didn't have beneficial intent. So anyone driving by, they literally would not even notice my house. It would be like it didn't even show up on their radar. So when I talk about cloaking or going in stealth mode, it's about like making it so I don't show up on the radar of anything that's not beneficial. Because if I do show up on the radar of all sorts of stuff that's not beneficial, then I'm having to expend energy having to deal with it. And yeah, so you could say, well, just make your energy stronger. But think about how much vigilance you have to use to just have to deal with the entities and the people coming your way, rather than just not even having, just flowing through and not even having them notice you. So that's my perspective. But I know that we all work with psychic protection differently, and I think that there's more than one way to do things. It all depends on your personality and also what kinds of experiences you've been having. And Josh has just joined us. Zahira says that she does stealth traveling too. I don't post on Facebook where and when I'm going. Yes, play it safe. Yeah, and Zahira, I think you and I are pretty similar personality-wise and some of our vulnerabilities. So that's what's been working for me right now. But I think we also go through different times in our life where we might do it one way sometimes, or we might do it another way. So we're all constantly evolving. And honestly, you guys, with any of my videos, take what works for you. If something doesn't work for you, hopefully it gives you clarity on why your method works really well for you. So either way, I hope that you get clarity. So let's see here. Nicole says, hi. Josh says, great to know with physical as well as other energies and attacks. True. By the way, thank you. I have to take this as a very good omen. Cool. Mariah says, little children, you are from... Okay, so we've got a Bible verse. Thank you, Mariah. Okay, so what I would say, because we've got a couple Bible verses here. Don't fear, for I have redeemed you. Bible verses are wonderful, but I would put them in the category of... what was the term I was going to use? Like, I would put them in the category, oh gosh, I'm kind of afraid this is going to offend you, and I don't mean it to be offensive. I hope that you can hear me through. I think that sometimes when people when someone's dealing with a spiritual warfare issue, sometimes very well-meaning people will give them a spiritual platitude, what I call a spiritual platitude, or a Bible verse, or spiritual saying, or whatever. And platitudes are lovely, and they can help us feel good and focus on the positive, but they're not necessarily tools. Like when someone will say, there's nothing you need to protect yourself from, that usually tells me that they haven't had the kinds of issues that I've had, or the kinds of issues that some of my clients have had. Now, I don't know you. I don't know your circumstance. So I'm literally speaking generally here, totally general. Whenever someone gives a spiritual platitude, it makes me wonder, have you... Like, I mean, the person that I worked with who had thousands of entities attached to them, me giving them that Bible verse isn't going to help them because they're so far gone. Like, they need actual tools that are going to get rid of and protect the person. So I hope I explained that pretty well. Shelley says, I didn't realize you could hide your light from negative energies or spirits. Yes. That's what I do. I imagine like a force field around me. And by the way, I think we're having an awesome conversation. And I know there's some of you that I recognize, of course, Zahira, I know you, and a few others that I mentioned before. Some of you I don't know, and I want to just reiterate that my philosophy is that I am just sharing my own perspectives. I don't think I'm the guru of everything or that I know everything. And I think it's important that we all honor what works for us. So I'm not gonna, I forget the phrase that I was gonna use, but like, I'm not going to sugarcoat what I think that my perspectives are, and I hope that that's a good fit for you. I hope you want to know. I hope you want to be listening to someone who's going to speak their truth and not just agree with everybody. Shelly says, I didn't realize you could hide your light from negative energies or spirits. I keep getting attacks while I'm sleeping or having negative people I've recently appear in my dreams, and I'm under attack. Shelly, there's a video on my YouTube channel, Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and it's all about it's called Psychic Protection I can't remember what it's called, but the title describes that it's all about psychic protection while you're sleeping or at night, protecting yourself at night. So there's a couple of real simple tips for that. Zahira says, I've recently tried cloaking my property and I like it. Yeah, so it can definitely take I'm reading other comments and I'm kind of smiling about that. Yeah, so cloaking can take practice. So when I've worked with some students and they've worked on cloaking when they've been doing a house clearing, they sometimes feel like it's not quite working at first, but as you practice it, then it becomes more effective. So you're not having to put tons of effort into cloaking your energy, like I'm cloaked like that. I would agree with our previous person, I can't remember the name. I would agree with Mariah that that's way too much effort. Like, don't do that. But if you have a daily practice where you get used to that, where then it becomes your default, where it's literally just how you operate in the world. It's like setting healthy boundaries, like saying, I am not available. Yeah, okay, this is the way I want to word this. It's like saying, I am not available for negative entities. And I am available for positive people and experiences. And what can also be true at the same time is that the spiritual sayings or the Bible verses can also be of comfort to us both. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So Nick is saying, I'm here too. And Shelly says, I met you in Dubuque. That happened to be a trip where there was some really weird spiritual activity going on. And I'm not going to go into that story, but I will share it in my second book. And I just need time to write the second book. But it was a really interesting trip. And it was actually very informative. I think that a lot of times my angels and my guides intentionally set things up so that I will have firsthand experiences so that I know exactly what it feels like, so I can have empathy and not just think that it's easy for everybody. So I can have empathy for what it feels like, and I can see firsthand what needs to be done to protect or fix the issue, to protect from or fix the issue. So I really think that's why these things happen. That seems obvious to me in the middle of crazy stuff. I'm like, oh my God, okay, I'm supposed to learn this and teach it. Okay. So anyway, we have more Bible verses coming in. So I welcome personal comments on here. So let's keep it to actual real comments, engaging. So, and I just forgot what I was going to say. Okay, so the trip to Dubuque, I already had tools up here, but I just didn't use them on that trip, and then until the second night, and then I applied a bunch of tools, and that helped a lot. But it just goes to show, even if you have all the information in your brain, sometimes we just get too relaxed, and we're like, oh, it's fine, and then until it's not fine, right? So we've talked about preparing for your trip. And now let's talk about when you arrive. But we've got a couple of comments. I'm loving this discussion, by the way, you guys. I love that we have a variety of views in here. Amanda says, should we find a single cleansing program and only use one, or can we use a different one every day? I think that's a great question. So I really think it depends on the person. Okay. You're actually in my program, and if you need help, I can help you find exactly where in the student portal you can find. There actually are daily protocol routines and audios. If you haven't found those, I can help you find them. And so anyway, to answer your question, for some people, using the same routine is helpful, and for others, mixing it up is fine. I would say, generally speaking, if someone is having a lot of psychic protection issues, I would like to see you find like a core routine that you really get down pat, so that it's part of you managing your energy and clearing your energy and strengthening your energy and tapping into your environment to be able to discern if there's anything that shouldn't be there and moving it out. Like, that's all part of a daily routine that you should be doing. Okay, and Zahira says, love your words about being available and not available. Yeah, I learned so much from you guys. When we get on Facebook Live and it's interactive, I really feel like it ends up being a lot different than if I were just doing a video by myself. Because when you have questions or comments, that helps me realize that I maybe need to explain things a little bit more clearly. So you guys helped guide me to that wording, I'm available or not available. And Zahira says, looking forward to your next book. Yes, me too. And I will just say that I'm actively working on rearranging some structure in my life so that I will have more time to write. But that book is not coming out anytime this year in 2019. It would be very unlikely, but I have all the material. I just have to write it. Okay, so once you arrive, just to keep it simple, we're going to talk about one location that you arrive at rather than thinking of a whole trip. You arrive at your hotel, your Airbnb, your RV park, or whatever. Your next thing that you do is you do a walkthrough. So you walk through the room, you walk through the Airbnb, whatever. And again, you're just using your intuitive skills, using your gut feelings, and just notice how you feel. Does the space feel good to you? Does it feel peaceful? Or maybe it feels tense. It's possible you could pick up on the energies of the people who stayed there before you. Maybe it's not, maybe it doesn't have to do with any like ghosts or evil spirits or anything. It's just the people who stayed there maybe were stressed out, or it was a married couple that got into a fight or something like that. So just notice how you feel. Do you feel relaxed? Do you feel tense? Or do you get this feeling like, ooh, it's not safe here? Maybe there's security issues. There was one place where I stayed where I immediately knew not to leave anything in my car. I should bring everything into the hotel room. So trust your gut feelings, and that's your first step, is you do a walkthrough and you trust your gut feelings. And then the next step, after you've done your walkthrough and your intuitive sensory walkthrough, then unload your stuff, bring your stuff in, and unpack it however you like to. If it's throwing everything everywhere or putting everything in the drawers, whatever your way is, take sovereignty over the space. You're renting it. It's yours for that time. So you put your stuff in there and you're claiming it, okay? And then I would recommend that you either say a prayer, or if you're not someone that is into prayer, say an intention that the space be clear and uplifting and safe and blah, 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 whatever other words that you want to use, okay? So you've walked through your space and you've set an intention or said a prayer for protection. Okay. And it's not just for protection, but it's like, let's have this space be peaceful and a nice relaxing space where you can rest and sleep well, etc., etc. Here's a tip that I like to use. Actually, these next two things are things that I started using as I started traveling more this year. The first is an essential oil spray. So all this is just a few drops of essential oils and then water. And it's in a glass bottle because essential oils will eat away at plastic. And it's also in a colored bottle because essential oils will get, essential oils do not like direct light. So what I do is I choose some essential oils, whatever I feel guided to. I'll give you a couple of suggestions right now. So grab your pen and paper. So here's some that some people might like, and just gravitate towards whatever sounds good to you. And some of them are more uplifting, some of them are more protective or cleansing. And when you mix them together, they create a nice scent. So you can use just one or several. And there's recipes for my essential oil spray in my program, the Spiritual Empowerment Academy. You can find that on my website, Psychic Protection Sanctuary. That's a paid program, but I didn't tell you my website yet, and I will now, psychicprotectionsanctuary.com. There's a lot of freebies on there, and you can find out about my paid program. So the recipe is in the program, but I will give you a few tidbits. First of all, frankincense essential oil it tends to be a little more expensive, but it is a really great go-to for clearing and protection, and it's a very great essential oil for blessing your space. And then another one that's common is sage essential oil, and that one is not so expensive. It's not too bad price-wise. Sage. A lot of hotels and Airbnbs are not going to want you to burn sage. They don't want anything with smoke. You're going to be charged because they're going to think that you were smoking in your room. So you can create a spray bottle with sage essential oil. You can also mix that with a citrus oil, which makes it smell really good. Okay, this is my first time ever on a Facebook Live that we have had interesting. Okay, I'm just gonna keep right on going. I wonder, hang on a second, you guys. Okay, no. So you can add a citrus oil, which is uplifting, and it also blends really well with sage and frankincense. It's going to make it smell really, really good. So you can use orange or lemongrass or lemon. All of those will smell really, really, really good. And I use lemongrass a lot for clearing. It's just a really, really great cleansing essential oil. So let's see, is there any? And orange, you could use orange. And I think those are just the main ones that I want to include, since we're not going to spend the whole time talking about essential oils. So you can create the spray, and then you just spray your room. Spray the room, spray the space, and what that does is it clears the energy of the space. Okay. So I just want to address a comment here. I want to just be really clear that my group and my videos are intended for people of all different spiritual paths. And so that's why I'm speaking in the language of everybody. I am not going to be telling everyone that they need to only be using Christian practices, because there are a lot of people in the world who are not, who are from other spiritual backgrounds. Okay, so this group and this page is for everybody to benefit from. And my perspective, my approach over the years has been to take what I'm sharing and then intertwine it with whatever your faith is, and do what works for you. Okay. So now the next thing that I would recommend for safety while you're sleeping is to put salt under your pillow. You guys. So did that person leave, Zahira? Okay, this is my first time having someone who's like trying to take over the video and angry that I'm teaching in a way that I'm open to everybody, all of your different spiritual practices, and that made someone really upset, and that's okay. That is okay. I'm kind of laughing about it. I mean, I hope the person is finds peace, but I am laughing about the fact that sometimes when we're out there in the world trying to help people or trying to give guidance, there are well, this is an example of the term that I use called interference. Sometimes there's interference, sometimes there's people or energies that come along that try to like throw things off because we're actually accomplishing something good. Yeah. So, but my perspective is there's room for all of us in here. We just have to understand that not everyone has the same beliefs as everybody else. So the next recommendation that I would give is to put salt under your pillow. This sounds really simple, like how could that possibly work? But it does. Salt actually dampens spiritual energy. So at that one place that I mentioned in Dubuque, where there was really weird spiritual activity going on, the first night I had to put forth so much effort to keep this thing out of my room, and I didn't sleep well because of it. And I was like, oh my God, why did I not bring some salt with me? Salt, if you put it under your pillow or you put it around your bed or you put it in the bed, you can put it in a little plastic baggie or in a fabric pouch and you put it under your pillow, and it makes it a lot harder for an entity to mess with you while you're sleeping. Okay? It does. It's like this. It sounds so simple. It's like people don't take it seriously because it just sounds like it's nothing, but it's so helpful, you guys. So helpful. And the second night when I did the salt, I had no more issues. By the way, I didn't mention something that's really important. When you're at home in your own space, that is your space. You own your home, or you have signed a rental agreement. So in that sense, you are sovereign over that space. Okay. But when you're traveling, you don't have the same level of sovereignty over that space. And I learned that in a big way. Like, I think it was like 9 months ago, I was out of state. I was staying at this Airbnb that was on some land that had some very evil spirits. Okay. And the actual Airbnb was fine, but there were some very negative spirits on the land. There were some very negative spirits on the land. And what I realized very quickly was that, this was their place. I was intruding on their territory because the homeowner, I think she really wanted them there. Like she was okay with them being there, and it was her space, and it was the entity's space, and I was intruding on them. So it can be a little more difficult in those conditions because you don't have the right. You really don't have the right to move out all entities just because you say so if you're visiting someone else's property. And that's why it's really important to choose the right spot. That was the big lesson that I learned on that trip. So I was going to mention that earlier and I forgot. So that's why it's a little bit trickier when you're traveling. Okay. So the two physical tools that I recommend are your essential oil spray And you can also, by the way, you can use holy water or some other kind of blessed water for your water in here to add to the protective nature of it, and also salt. Okay, salt under the pillow. Those are the two things that I find are the most helpful. But I also have a lot of students and clients who find that certain crystals and gemstones help them. And again, we don't have time to go into a bunch of crystals for this one, but I would say find your favorite one and either wear it or put it under your pillow. Generally speaking, the darker crystals, gemstones, tend to be more protective. You know, like black tourmaline and jet, etc., etc. Those are black or dark gray, and those tend to be more protective. But sometimes, rather than using a protective crystal or gemstone, people want something that's more uplifting. So reach for whatever works for you. And then here's another important suggestion that I have is when you are done, before you check out of your place after your travels, I recommend that you spray the room and the bed that you were sleeping in with this and set the intent that any residual energy that you left behind be cleared. And there's a reason for this, and the main reason is that I literally saw when I was checking out of a place, the place in Dubuque that had the really weird spiritual activity going on, I came back in to do a final walkthrough to make sure I hadn't left anything. I'm clairvoyant, and so I can see energies and entities. And I walked back in, and I literally saw that entity like feeding off of the residual energy that I had left in the bed. Now, how should I describe this? So, I had my energy with me, so I was in my full power. But just by default, you leave part of your energy behind wherever you go. It's like an echo kind of. So it's like just like you shed skin cells. I know that sounds gross, but that's the best way I can describe it. Like if you've shed some skin cells onto the pillow or whatever. Similarly, there's excess energy that's been left. And I saw this entity was eating that energy, and the first words out of my mouth were, "Oh, gross." It was so disgusting. And so after that, now that I travel, since that happened, I always clear my energy out of the space. It also makes the room smell really good, so when they come in to clean it, it already smells wonderful in there. So those are my suggestions for travel. As you may have noticed in my free Facebook Live classes, I tend to keep things pretty introductory and basic and very user-friendly, like things that you can use easily. You don't need like a 5-hour course to learn how to do it. So these are just some real quick and easy things that you can apply next time that you're traveling. And then of course, if you want to go deeper and you want to learn like the whole huge scope of all of the stuff that I teach about psychic protection and spiritual empowerment, then you can go to my website, psychicprotectionsanctuary.com, and under the events tab, you'll see the programs that I have. For example, Spiritual Empowerment Academy, which is online and it's available to everybody in the world. We have a few more comments. So let's see what we've got here. Jeannie says, it's all good. Amanda says, I got the heebie-jeebies for a minute. Glad we're back on track now. Yeah, I really would describe that as interference. I've been using the word interference a lot. It's like sometimes people are guided to, they're negatively guided to interfere, and luckily that doesn't happen very often. Like that's literally the first time that's happened during a live video. So I think I'm kind of laughing like, yay, it was a milestone, important milestone. So anyway, and then it was a learning experience for all of us. Zahira says, wow, that was a surprise. Zahira says, yes, salt has really helped me. Thank you for your teaching. Shelly says, I will try it. Amanda says, what kind of salt should we bless it? So what I have found through all the house clearings and the personal work that I've done is that literally any kind of salt, like I use table salt all the time. Just salt in and of itself dampens spiritual energy, but you can also enhance it more by blessing it, and there's a whole variety of things that you can do with it. Amanda, you're in my program. I'll point out to you, just remind me later, and I'll show you where in the program there's a whole section on salt and how to use it and how to make different kinds of salt. But generally speaking, you guys, really just regular old salt, not even blessed, is like a miracle. It helps a lot. So the other stuff that you can do to it is just bonus. Shelly says, that's kind of scary. I see things and feel energy. The feeling is getting so strong. I'm even having issues going to rock stores or thrift antique stores. It's extremely uncomfortable. And I feel spirits on items. Yeah, so we're all in a different place in our spiritual journey. So, some of us might be in a position where we have to limit how often we go to thrift stores or antique stores, if that's not good for you at this time. And then instead focus on strengthening your energy and grounding. It feels like finding a balance of strengthening your energy and grounding, because your spiritual gifts, Shelly, are so strong, and there needs to be a little more strengthening in the lower chakras to help keep you really anchored when that stuff happens. So this was fun, everybody. I always think at the beginning, like, maybe I'll just do a 30-minute class, and it seems like every single time it really takes us about an hour to get through our material and interact and have fun together. So we are right a little bit over an hour, and it's time for us to wind down. Just remember that we have a free Facebook Live class every month, and I always announce it in our Psychic Protection Sanctuary Facebook group. And then I also always upload these classes onto our YouTube channel. And if you're not on YouTube yet, go to youtube.com, look up Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and be sure to click subscribe so that you see all the future videos that I do. Sometimes I will do more than one Facebook Live class, but at a minimum, I do one a month, and really make it a quality one. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Jeannie says, thank you. Great class. Shelly says, thank you. Zahira says, I keep salt right by my bed in a container to put in and around my bed and in the corners of my room. Yep, that's great. And Amanda says, I need to try this. Yes. And hey, you guys, there is that related video, Psychic Protection, Protecting Yourself at Night. I should remember what the name of it is, but I think I did it over a year ago, so I can't remember. But the title is really obvious, so just go onto my YouTube channel, Psychic Protection Sanctuary, and look in the Psychic Protection playlist, and you'll see a ton of videos, including one that's all about protecting yourself at night. There's a lot of little simple tips there as well. Zahira says, yes, great class as usual. Thank you, Maya. You're welcome, everybody, and I will see you next time. Sending you all my love.